Thank you for listening to this PodcastOne production. Now available on Apple Podcasts, PodcastOne, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.
The following program is a PodcastOne.com production.
From Hollywood, California, by way of the Broken Skull Ranch, this is the Steve Austin Show.
Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah! Now, here's Steve Austin.
Boomer Sooner, Jumpin' Jim Ross, White Meat Babyface. How are you?
Good, man. I'm
good.
You
came out here to do a little bit of an acting gig. It sounds like you had a lot of fun.
I did.
It sounds to me like they're going to be ringing your phone, trying to beat you down to do more acting.
I think I'm going to be big, Steve. God damn it. I don't know.
You could be the next Tom Cruise.
Yeah. Oh, if I shrunk to about 5'8". I had a good time. You know, one of those, it was what my agent said, a low-budget movie, but boy, it had fun. And the crew was good. If you treat the crew nice, it seems like everything goes better. So,
well, you don't want to be a damn asshole to everybody is the bottom line.
No, that's right. Exactly. So I had a good time. I played a guy that was a prick who owned or he was a manager of a place that booked vacations.
So you played a guy that was a prick. So that really expanded you and showed your range as an actor.
Exactly. I've worked for a lot of them. So I just drew from all the guys I've worked with over the years, and I kind of melded it into my own little character. And but it was fun. It's good. It's a good deal, and had fun doing it.
Now, you were staying out there in Hollywood. Now, how did you find that? Because Hollywood is it's a little bit of a weird scene. I'm here in Marina del Rey. We're a couple of miles from the airport.
Yep.
I don't really go into Hollywood too much. It's an interesting dynamic. I don't think
it's weird.
A cat from your standpoint of life would just find a whole lot of people over there with some stuff in common.
Well, it was a crazy damn scene, man, because we stayed at the Hollywood Roosevelt, which is across the street.
That's where everybody goes to be seen.
Oh, yeah. It's right across the street from the Gromans, whatever, Chinese theater. All the stars and all the handprints. I tweeted one out that day, John Wayne's handprints.
Did you find it?
Yeah, hell yeah. And I texted McMahon. I said, I'm looking for your star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He said, well, whatever you do, don't spit on it. I said, I'm not going to spit on it. I'm just going to drop an elbow on it. Well, I never did run into it. But they had the Michael Jackson. You know, Michael Jackson passed away this week, whatever it was, 5 years ago, whatever. Right. And God almighty, it was like Michael Jackson shrines down there.
Flowers and stuff.
Oh, yeah, it's crazy people. Not that they're crazy, but.
Yeah, I mean, they're just big fans.
Yeah,
I saw Vince's handprints over there. I mean, they're down there in front of a little T-shirt shop. I can't remember the corner of the street, but I saw him. I sent him a text message when I found it and sent him a picture of it. He started laughing. I'm thinking about lobbying for my own gimmick on the star on the.
Oh, you ought to have one. You ought to have one. You know, nothing else. A star on the Walk of Fame, and but we had good. It was good. We had good food, and the movie people put us up in a nice hotel. Didn't have to rent a car. They drove us around, got us where we needed to be.
How much of the hurry up and wait process did you not like? I mean, were they pretty efficient in just getting you done and shot out? Because sometimes, you know, you go there and do a run through. They got to readjust the lightings. You come back, blah 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 blah.
Monday was good because we did it at the Rainbow Room, and they put me in the corner of the bar upstairs. And ostensibly, I was supposed to be in Cabo, and I was wearing a pair of khaki shorts, knee-high socks, and my black ostrich boots.
I mean, that's what you normally walk around the house.
Yeah, right, exactly. And a flowery shirt that was about a half size too small, maybe two sizes, and a black. The guy said, "Well, I want you to keep the black hat, a black sombrero." And I was drinking tequila, so it was quite the conversation I had on the phone with this guy. And then I wore in all my other scenes. The director and writer is such a big fan. He wanted me to have my hat on in every scene, so my hat was on in every scene. Right. And then one of the scenes, I broke the fourth wall and cut a promo on this guy that just quit, and I cut a promo like he just quit the I Quit match.
Right.
Brought back the old days.
Yeah.
So I kind of went off on him. So there's a million little pro wrestling references in this movie that are so subtle that if you listen real close, you're going to be able to hear if you're a fan. So it's not a wrestling movie, but it's got a lot of the guys that are in it are wrestling fans.
Now, was it tequila you was drinking? Was that movie tequila? Was it shoot tequila?
It was working tequila.
Working tequila. If there's one thing I can't stand is a swig of tequila, and it ain't real.
No, it might have been.
Hey man,
Crystal Geyser thing.
Anyway, hey, let's talk about your podcast for a second, because I'm just going to make this little short opening here before I get into my conversation with Christopher Daniels. You have on your show this week the Ross Report, which drops on Wednesday. Yeah. Who's your guest?
Lance Storm.
And Lance is a fun guy to talk to because
is.
He's very articulate, very intelligent, and knows and loves the business. A wealth of information.
He is, and he doesn't mind expressing his opinion. He has very strong opinions on how wrestlers should be trained and how the whole process.
Yep. And
it's really unique because his kids come in to Calgary. He has 3 classes a year, and then they get part-time jobs. It's a really an interesting story on how they do that.
Well, don't tell me the story here. I want people to listen to it.
It's good. It's a good interview because he's smart. He is articulate. He doesn't mind expressing himself. He's got some good opinions. Probably back in the day, Steve, he'd have probably made somebody either a really good booker or he would have made somebody a good assistant booker because he's got a fertile mind. And he talks all about the first territory, which was Smoky Mountain. Him and Jericho were a tag team, and how they interfaced with Cornette and the old deal. They sent out pictures to everybody and tapes and all that stuff. So it's a good. And then on tonight, I'm taping an interview with Sting.
The icon Sting.
Yeah, not the rock star.
No, we're talking about the icon.
Yeah, and so that's going to be airing soon. I put all my guys that I got booked on my homepage of my website so that people could check out who's coming up at JR's BARBQ.com. So I got them all on the front page of that. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be. I'm looking forward to talking to him because people are going to want to know: are you going to WWE? Are you going to have one more match? What about the Undertaker match, which is kind of passé? It seems to me like now. He's in the big 2K15 video game. Sting is. So that's a big deal. So we got a lot to talk about. And
it's going to be interesting seeing him in a 2K15 video game because he's going to stick out like a sore thumb. But I think it's a great bonus to have him in there. Although he was never stepped foot in a WWE ring, Sting has had one of the greatest careers of all time. Yes. So it'll be a real curveball, and I think it'll be a real interesting addition to the video game roster.
I think it will. I think he's got a great story. He was a rookie when I first met him, and now he's 52 years old, and he was a rookie then. And he was teaming up with then it was Rock.
Yeah, Rock.
Rock, the other Rock, and then who became the Dingo Warrior later on, who weighed about 275 or 280 back in those days. And Hellwig didn't last long at Cowboys Ranch. That relationship kind of imploded. But he got lucky because, as we've talked about, he got under the wing of Gary Hart, and it straightened his ass out to where at least he could stay booked and get a chance to go to work for WWE, and what he did real well.
Well, that'd be an interesting conversation. But hell, man, cut JR off. It's my little opening for the show. If he's talked to Christopher Daniels, 20-year vet, and it's a great conversation I have with this guy. And don't forget, people, I've been telling you guys, I got the Broken Skull Challenge coming up on July 6th. It's going to be the season premiere at 9 p.m. If you ain't going to be at the crib, set your DVR to record the show. It's a badass, bust-ass competition show. If you like anything that's physical or anything that's competitive, you will dig this show, and it's badass. And I got some hellacious athletes that come down to the Broken Skull Ranch to do their thing. And before I get to Christopher Daniels, I want to thank Jumpin' Jim Ross, the white meat babyface from Norman, Oklahoma, who stormed into the house today. Jim, I was telling the people a story. Jim, did you notice that tomato plant right there on the front step when you was coming in?
I did not.
It's Tommy the tomato plant. Last night, my wife jumped my ass because I hadn't watered that thing for the day. I had big five jobs I'm supposed to do every day, and I had not watered that tomato plant. And, of course, I come over here to turn the water hose on and stepped right in the middle of a big-ass pile of dog shit. Let me ask you something. You've been around a long time.
Yeah.
You ever stepped in a fresh, steaming pile of dog shit with your bare feet?
Absolutely.
It's just that kind of weird feeling just slides right through, and all of a sudden you feel the grass on the bottom of your foot.
It's pudding-like.
It's pudding-like. That's the way he describes it. He ain't a Hall of Fame announcer for no reason. Hell, I wish, you know what? I wish would have happened. I wish I'd been doing a podcast and you could have been watching me.
I could have called it.
Yeah, you could have called it. Hey, how would you call? Because here I am stepping, and I just step into the dog shit. How would you have called it?
Well, I might have gone a little Omaha, that Beach of Omaha. You know, Steve's approaching, ladies and gentlemen. It looks like a pile of dog shit. We're not sure, but I know this. He's got some ugly ass bare feet. Closer he gets. Wait, no, will he stop? No, he's not stopping. He's walking. He's walking. Oh, for the love of God, it's oozing through his ugly ass toes. It looks like green pudding all over his feet, but thank God Tommy the tomato plant got watered.
By God, that dog shit had a family. How would you say that, Jim?
My God, Steve, the dog shit had a family. It had a bowel. It came from something.
All right, everybody sitting here at 316 Gimmick Street. Christopher Daniels just rolled into the scene here. Came in. It's about a 60-mile drive from your house to mine, right?
It's exactly that much. Yeah.
Well, first of all, let me welcome your ass to 316 Gimmick Street.
This
welcome.
is the first time. Thank you very much.
What's
I appreciate
happening?
it. I am. I'm being interviewed by one of the biggest guys in the business ever, and I told my friend. When I got this and when you talked to me about doing this, I told him it was the equivalent of like, welcome to the Robert De Niro show. Today's guest, that guy from the Geico commercial. And I'm like, wow. So, I mean, it's a big deal. I'm thrilled to be here.
I'm glad to have you here. And you, as I always tell anybody talking on the show, if you get lost, kid, grab a hold.
Grab a hold.
Okay.
Done.
Here we go. Hey, you just rolled in. You came in from out of town. You live about 60 miles down the road. So, first thing, the task at hand, traffic. Did you get your ass smoked in traffic? You said you left early.
I left early. I usually, when I have to be at the airport, which is literally a stone's throw from here, when I have to be at the airport super early, I leave about 3 hours early. I'll go work out down at the gym on Century Boulevard. So I did that today, knowing that if I left my house at 6, I could get here by 7:30. But if I left by 7, I would get here at 9:30, and that was way too much time in the car. So
this is like one of the earliest shows I've ever done. I'm still trying to wake up. If I doze off, I better not doze off because I'm expecting you to carry your ass on your side of the conversation.
I'll start yelling and going off on a tangent while I try to wake you up off.
Well, God dang, we should have had the microphones rolling a while ago. We got into a big discussion about just the change in the work that's being done in the ring today. But before we get there and talk about pro wrestling and all things Christopher Daniels, I got to ask you, on my show, I always give guys a couple of tips that will help their ass out in real life. So as you came in here, you got your iPad and you got these comic books that you just gave me as a part of your thing. What's this thing you do, this thing we just filmed?
Oh, Tweet Secret. It's
okay, tell me about Tweet Secret. We just filmed a little thing for your Tweet Secret. Break that down for me.
Tweet Secret is a new thing just started by the guys at It's a Secret. And that's
Can we talk about it, or is it a secret?
Absolutely. No.
See what I did there?
Yeah, I sure do. They just started this app where basically it's sort of a sister app to Twitter where celebrities will film behind the scenes of their lives, and it's 90-second videos. And like, for example, Chris Jericho is doing it now, and he's on tour and taking shots of him on the bus. And every week he does a Raw review. Myself, like, because I'm a comic book guy,
he does a 90-second Raw review?
Well, I think he does a couple. Like, it takes him a couple to do it. Gotcha. But the videos are only 90 seconds long. And the app is called It's a Secret. And what you do is you get the app for free, but you pick the celebrity that you want to follow or the celebrities. And to get a month's worth of their videos, it's $3. Right. And so, and then for our job is to put as much content out there to make it worth the viewer's while to spend $3 a month to watch what I'm doing in my ridiculous life.
So how many videos are you cranking out?
I'm trying to knock out like. They want to do one a day, but I mean, not every day is, I don't get a chance to come to 316 Gimmick Street every day. So, like yesterday.
But surely there must be some daily highlight in the life of Christopher Daniels that is Twitter secret worthy.
You would think that is the case, and it is not. My life at home is taking care of my kids, and there are some parts of my house life that I sort of want to keep undercover, but. Like yesterday, I got an opportunity to film. I don't know if you know the guys at Epic Mealtime. They're big. Okay, I just got a chance.
Those guys are huge on YouTube.
They're huge on YouTube, and they just got a new show that they finished filming yesterday for the FYI network. I don't know if that's even jumped out yet, but their show's called Epic Meal Empire, and I got to meet them a couple months back, and they've invited me to come back and do some stuff. And I actually made a YouTube video with Frankie. Sort of parodying their show, called it Epic Bad Influence Time, and because of that, we've been like sort of fast friends. So I got to film yesterday, and I did 2 videos with them yesterday. I did a video with you today, and You know, I also do like backstage at shows, like, hey, this is who's on the show today, or you know, every Wednesday at New Comic Day, I go to the comic shop and say, okay, this is what's new, and read this, and take a look at this, and buy that. So that's what's going on my Tweet Secret feed, and hopefully that's worth $3 of the viewer's time, you know.
And what we did when you walked in, you said, hey, man, anytime you go to someone's house, you must bring a gift.
Exactly.
And you presented me with a comic book.
I did.
It's Christopher Daniels and Kazarian, Russell, Hell Yeah Comics, and Art Baltazar.
Art Baltazar is the artist, yeah.
Badass artist.
He's outstanding. He's outstanding. And
so you presented this to me, and then you also brought this Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Now that's not necessarily a gift. I was going to ask you, because I am a comic collector, I was going to ask you if I could trouble you for a Steve Hancock on that.
I am going to sign this for you. With that being said, I know you've been in the business over 20 years.
Right.
And you might have heard me talking about the illustrious Gary Hart book.
Absolutely.
So my return gift to you is I'm going to give you my copy of the Gary Hart I'm going to give you my copy of the Gary Hart book. Now I want it back. We're going to pass it down the road.
That seems fair.
We're going to pass this thing around. So there's some dog-eared pages in there. Don't worry about them. They're just things that I dog-eared, because you can undog-ear them when you read the book. But I present back to you Playboy Gary Hart, my life in wrestling, with a little help from my friends. I've been talking to Court Bauer, and he's been talking to that other guy who co-authored the book, and his name was Philip Varial. He's been talking on Twitter. He's been thinking about getting this book on Kindle or making it an ebook, or it only went through 2 printings. Right. I don't know what the fuck is going on, but the guy needs to get his ass in gear, shit or get off the pot. It's a hell of a book. I'm not going to talk about it anymore on this show, but nonetheless, I present this book to you.
Thank you very much, man. Actually, I listened to your podcast, and after I got done, I texted Court, and I said, can I borrow that Playboy Gary Hart book? Because that sounds outstanding. And
it is, man. There's just so many lessons in there. It's you know, his life in the business. I mean, he grew up in Chicago, got involved with, you know, doing some mob stuff, and just the way he conducted himself. And he always just kind of had he was a man of principle.
Right.
And stood up for the things that he believed in the business. And he was just so creative and unique, and, you know, creating some of the characters that he did. But just by the way, conducted business. I thought that anybody who has an interest in the business of professional wrestling, the inner workings, and especially in particular, if you're a person that wants to get into business, this is just knowledge. I think the more knowledge you have in anything, the better chances you have to be successful. And this just sets the tone for, hey, some of the decisions you might have to make in your career, and you get to learn them from one of the all-time greats, Gary Hart. So I hope you, and when you get done with it, we'll circle back on a phone call, and you give me your report and tell me what you took from the book.
Absolutely. The one thing that I heard Court and you speaking about that I was interested in the most was the idea of protecting a character and getting a character over. Because I think, to me, there's a difference between learning how to work and learning how to get over. And sometimes learning how to get over never really gets articulated to you as a student. And I thought back to myself, and I thought, really, no one's ever really said specifically how to get over. They just say, go out there and get yourself over, which is almost like saying, well, go out there and find love, or go out there and keep hope alive. You know, it's very vague. And so,
well, learning that, they're two separate things.
Sure.
You gotta. There's been some guys who weren't such great workers who got over.
Sure.
There's you need the more you can work, the better you can work. I think the chances are greater that you get over.
Sure.
But there's been a lot of guys who've come down the pike and relied completely on the gimmick. But they are two separate things.
Sure. And to my point, I think it's almost not the opposite. I mean, depending on who you talk to, whether you think I'm over or I'm not over at all, or a little bit over, or whatever. Like, my work has always been sound, you know, and that's the criticism. But getting over has always been a little bit more difficult. So this is something that I want to look at, and also in terms of going past, once my in-ring stuff is done, I'd love to learn to become a booker, and the difference between being a booker and being a writer.
You're going to get a lot of that in that
exactly.
book.
So,
right.
I mean, that was one of the reasons I wanted to get that book. So,
hey, man, let's talk a little bit about your Ring of Honor pay-per-view.
Okay.
Just this past Sunday, you're down in Nashville, Tennessee at the fairgrounds.
Yes.
Jesus,
that hot box.
Dude. I used to wrestle back in the day when I was in the Nashville USWA territory, and that was our Saturday night show. We was on the road about 6 days a week, and Nashville was always Saturday night. Hotter than a sumbitch. I thought it did a pretty good job of dressing the building up and lighting it. It could have used another bank of lights. That's being critical. That being said, I thought the building looked as good as it could.
That was actually where we used to do the Wednesday pay-per-views as well, and the way they had it set up looked completely different than the way TNA had it set up, and I thought it gave it a little more of that old arenas feel versus when TNA was there, they had everything lit and you could see every seat. This one had a little darker tone to it, but
now where's your stance on that? Because I started watching it a little bit. I got the WWE Network, and I watched a couple of the NXT shows, and I actually prefer that lighting style. And I don't know if you've seen that versus WWE Monday Night Raw, just because I like the more intimate setting. Don't get me wrong, I love the big buildings and all that stuff, and you love all the fans crammed in there and its atmosphere. But I like the toned down lighting.
Well, I think, and this may be just me speaking out of turn, but I think a lot of that has to do with look at how many people we have at our show. If you want to hide that, you have the lights down. But if you want to like make a spectacle of, look, everybody, this is the party you should be at, and making those events feel like must attend events, then hey, look, everybody's here. You should be here the next time we're in your town. So I'm good either way.
I'm good either way, but
as an old school guy,
I like to harken back to my days when I was 7 or 8 years old, when dinosaurs were still walking the face of the earth. And on my TV, there was two guys out there, and it's almost like an extension cord with a light bulb on the end of it, and that was the lighting.
Sure.
And the whole focus was on that match. So I really dug that vibe. To the Ring of Honor card, I mean, just. How was the vibe or the feeling backstage? Does everybody in Ring of Honor, because you've had several tenures there.
Right.
Now you go back. It's been a while.
Yes.
What, 3 years?
3 years, yeah.
Okay, and you and Frankie Kazarian, longtime friend and tag team partner, take on Red Dragon. Talented kids.
Yes.
Got a hell of a future ahead of them. I like a lot of the stuff they did. And they need to slow down a little bit, but they got a lot of talent. So what's the feeling back there? Does everybody know each other? Here you come, the old veterans. Is it a tight atmosphere, a competitive atmosphere, loose? Everybody nervous because it was a pay-per-view?
It was a little bit of everything. Very much nervous because it was their first broadcast pay-per-view. They had done internet pay-per-views, but this was, the first real dance, I guess you could call it. And I felt very emotional coming back because I've always felt like they've treated me very well, and I've always felt like no matter where I was, it was sort of a home for me because I was there from the very beginning. And, when I've always gone away, I never went away because I wanted to go away. I went away because I had to. And so, getting the opportunity to go back and being a part of a pay-per-view that I really had no building towards. Like I left the last time I left because they were getting television with Sinclair, and I was under a wacky contract where I was able to do Ring of Honor and TNA. And Cornette was in charge, and he was like, look, what happens if you go to TNA and Rob Terry beats you in 2 minutes and you come to my TV? And I was like, well, Jim, I think that the person now that would seek out Ring of Honor television and watch TNA television knows the gig. And my pitch to him was like, look, I'm a babyface in TNA. I will play Christopher Daniels, the babyface in TNA. I will be Christopher Daniels, the fallen angel, the heel in Ring of Honor. Because, when you're watching two television shows, like you watch Breaking Bad and Bryan Cranston is this, and then you go see Godzilla and you don't go, Walter White's fighting Godzilla. Right. You know what I mean? That was my pitch to him, and I couldn't convince him to do that.
But that was a great pitch, and I agree with the logic. But he didn't buy it.
No,
and I love Jim. I'm sure you do too, but he's old school as hell.
Sure. Yeah. And I think a lot of that too was with Sinclair because it was their first foray into wrestling, and so if Jim had said something to that effect, they probably were like, oh, well, Jim knows what he's talking about, so we better not. He's probably right. You know what I mean? They weren't going to go around him and go, oh, no, that's a good idea that Chris just pitched. Right. So, I had to leave. And so literally they've built their television from the middle of 2011 when I left to the point now where, June 22nd, 2014, they go to their first pay-per-view. So it was very emotional. But everybody, I got the impression that those guys that had been there in those 3 years, they didn't look at each other like competition. They looked at each other like family. They looked at each other like, hey, we're on the same team. We're going to the goal of getting to that next level. And so it was very emotional for them to welcome me back the way they did and to allow my partner, Frankie, who really had no real ties to the company in the way that I did, and still brought us back as the act. So it was a big deal.
When I look at the scene today, you and I were talking again before I started rolling sound, but we're going to cover this. You're a veteran, over 20 years. There's a lot of green guys out there, a lot of youth on this card. Did anybody seek you out and pick your brain, ask you any advice, tips, help, anything?
A couple people did. Going forward, I know that they're going to come to be more often, but I think a lot of people sort of gave me my space because it was my first time back. But there were two guys that weren't on the pay-per-view itself that were on. We filmed a couple of television matches,
right,
and they came to me and asked me my opinion on a finish, and I gave them my 2 cents, and they used it and came back and said it was well received from the people that watched
right.
it. So yeah, I mean, I'm getting people coming up to me and asking me certain things, and I tried to watch as much as I could and say, when I watch someone's match, like, it's easy to go, "Good job, kid," and walk away.
Yeah.
And so usually I'll. And that's the sure thing that makes me say, oh, well, that person wasn't really watching. He's just being polite.
Right.
So, like, if someone comes to me and says, would you watch my match? And the first thing I'll say is, good job, but.
Right.
Unless there's nothing, unless it's
Okay.
100% perfect. But I'll be like, this is what I see that can be better. And even
Okay.
if it's nitpicky, 98% of that was great. And here's how you get that 2% to be better. And in the end, it's all my opinion. So
With that being said, good job, but let's go back on that pay-per-view.
Okay.
Opening match, 6 men in the ring. Man, everything but the kitchen sink. A lot of go-behinds and switch-arounds.
Right.
Too many. Second match did the same thing with all the switch-arounds. It was like guys had butterfingers or no grip strength.
Right.
And I mean, it's in a constructive criticism way.
Sure.
I ain't knocking none of the guys. I respect the fact they're trying to get good in a squared circle. But anyway, back to that first match. 6 guys in the ring, lots of stuff over the top rope, out of the ring. To start that pay-per-view, hindsight being 20/20 and me watching it and really wanting to enjoy the match, the card, a strong single, a strong tag, 10 minutes, keep everything in the ring.
Sure.
Your thoughts?
I see that point of view, and I also see sort of the way that Ring of Honor has built their fan base to expect a certain thing, and in the same way, trying to get as much of their roster on their premier card on the broadcast pay-per-view. So, I mean, if you had gone to a strong singles, if you had picked 2 guys out of that crew to do a strong 10-minute match, then 4 of those guys may have been at home and not shown. So, I mean,
that being said, you could have told the same 6 guys, man. Whatever, I don't remember the rules of the match. But it was everything but the kitchen sink.
Right. And those things too, like
I mean, you're jerking off, and you came as soon as the pay-per-view started.
Right.
Yeah.
I
because
think
what are the guys, going, second, third, fourth, fifth match? You've already seen a bunch of their shit.
Right. And I think that the hard part then is to try and find, at least for me, knowing that I'm not going to be able to top that action-wise, I have to try and top that story-wise and character-wise and still do my stuff the way, like you were talking about earlier. Even if everybody was doing the knuckle lock, you would do your knuckle lock, like we were talking about Japan earlier. So it's a tough spot. Like I said, a lot of these guys are trying to get noticed and stand out. And the norm has become in the last couple of years, especially in TNA with the X Division and guys that – they don't necessarily give opportunities to build characters, but they go, all right, here's 10 minutes. Wow me, kid.
Get a look,
right.
Get pulled to a side, then you can do a character, but
Right.
you're just trying to get and I get that. I remember being suplexed in Chevrolet dealerships back in 1990 trying to be that guy that got noticed. So,
yeah.
And these days, everything has just turned to such a fast pace. Where does the business go? It's at such a fast pace right now. Whether you're talking about WWE, TNA, or Ring of Honor, or maybe even the indie scene, which I haven't seen, where does the business go to now? It's so fast.
Well, I feel like the trick is you got to get guys, and I don't want to point at myself as an example, but I mean you get guys that have done all kinds of different things where they've gone to Japan, gone to Mexico, gone to TNA, done television, know the restraints that come with working shorter matches and things like that. And just working with the younger guys and going, okay, we have to part of that, I think, is having the ego and letting go of that ego to say, I don't need to get all of this in one match. I can save some of it for the next match or the next match after that. It's very often where I would go into a match and go, okay, well, I only have 8 minutes, so I'm going to pick one thing that maybe I haven't done or maybe something that I want to establish as more of a Christopher Daniels exclusive. And so I'm going to make sure that is one thing that I get in the match, and everything else I'm fine with. I don't need to get another, dive. I don't need to get another high spot. I don't necessarily need to get another false finish. And once I sort of had that ego and let go of that ego, like I got to get my stuff in. Once I got rid of that, I feel like I was telling better stories. I was having matches where I wasn't rushing to get to the next thing,
Okay, so Christopher Daniels, Curry Man, and sometimes a suicide. We'll get to all that.
Yep.
But the question I'm asking you now, so how would you describe your in-ring style?
I've always tried to be the guy that adapts best to the guy across from me, and that's how I felt.
But would you say cruiserweight, classic, high flyer, technical?
Jack of all trades.
Right.
I've always been, I do a little bit of high flying. I can do some technical. I can do some brawling. But I felt like if I ever got pigeonholed in a spot, that was a way to get taken out of other spots. And so to me, and this is something that I tell guys coming up, as you're coming up, you need to work as many different people as you can, for as many different promoters as you can, in as many different places as you can. Because once you get comfortable enough with you as the performer, where you can go into a locker room, meet a guy for the very first time, and 3 hours later have a good match, that's when you become a commodity to a promoter. Because the promoter goes, well, God, I need a high flyer. Well, Christopher Daniels can fly. I can put him in here with that. Or I got to get this guy who can throw hands really good. Well, Christopher Daniels is a pretty decent brawler. Right. I can do that. So I never wanted to get pigeonholed.
You got a lot of tools in your toolbox.
Right, exactly. And if I could, and it also helped me shine the other person, whether I was the babyface or the heel. I would always put the other guy over by feeding to his strengths rather than forcing him to. Like if someone was a high flyer and I go, well, I'm not a very good catch, then that guy can't fly, and that takes away something out of his game. I would rather be like, I can do anything you want to do. I can catch if you want to fly. I can throw hands if you want to brawl. I can trade holds if you want to technical.
Right.
And that was the way I felt as far as my style. So really, jack of all trades is the description.
Okay, as a mechanic in the ring, A1. Psychology in the ring, A1. That being said. You just said it. Heel or babyface? You prefer which one?
Heel. Definitely heel. Okay. Definitely heel.
I knew he was going to say that, and I would tell you the same thing. Why?
Well, to me, I felt, and a lot of this has to do with, I always felt like my babyface was very forced. It was easier for me to get under people's skin than to get
why do you
people
feel
to
like your
me.
baby face was forced? Because I'm sitting here, I mean, Jesus Christ, I saw you in Kazarian in an airport in Nashville, Tennessee, 6 months ago?
Yep.
It's been a while.
Yep.
We've crossed paths, but never really hung out. You're a likable guy. So why is the baby face thing forced?
Well, I think it's hard in today's, so many people want to like cheer the bad guy or I never thought I was really cool. Like I feel like the best babyface that I could ever be was the style that X-Pac was when he was a babyface. That fiery, I'm not going to take any crap babyface. And that was the best that I could do. Right. But even then, I felt like my moveset didn't lend itself well to being that style of babyface because you want to see some flash. Like AJ Styles to me was that, in terms of being a babyface, that was the best type of babyface. Like that sort of guy that had the flash and the, oh my God, did you see that? Like, I didn't have that. And so, like, when I was tagging with AJ, I was the heat guy and he was the comeback guy because his comeback was better than mine. Right. And so I always felt like as a babyface, my comeback, my offense was never that flashy. But as a heel, I could sort of drive the bus and say, okay, well, this is where we slow down, this is where we speed up. And B, when it came time, I was good at taking all the high-flying, flashy stuff, and I had no problem doing the whoa, brother, that sort of thing, rather than, I got to get my stuff in, kid, you know?
Okay, you're from Michigan, right?
I was born there. I didn't grow up there.
But so then you grew up in the Carolinas?
Yes.
Okay, and then you end up in California?
Right.
Okay, so what was the body of work that you grew up watching in the business of pro wrestling?
Mid-Atlantic, NWA, Ric Flair, Crockett Promotions, a little bit of UWF. Because
you don't really see that in your work, though.
Really?
No, I mean, you see Japan, you see...
Okay, fair enough.
Some lucha, because you spent a couple years in Mexico.
Right.
But just technical stuff you see. More so probably than the guys that you grew up watching.
Well, so like, for example, my first favorite wrestler was Magnum TA, and I got a chance to watch him.
Hey, what'd you like about Magnum?
I don't know, man. I can't articulate what I dug about him. He just stood out to me, and I really dug the belly to belly. I think one of the first things I ever saw him do was belly to belly Kamala. And I was like, oh my God.
Right.
How crazy is that? Like Kamala's this beast of a wild beast, and all of a sudden this wacky. And I'd never seen the belly to belly until he did it, and I was like, holy cow, how great is that? So then he got into his stuff with Tully Blanchard, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. And then I got a chance to see him live against Flair in Cumberland County Arena in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Man, like Magnum Tia was a good-looking guy, barrel chest, small waist. He just had great fire. And he wasn't the most athletic guy on the card either. And he was going to be wrestling's next megastar until he had that damn wreck. But he had just tremendous fire. And when he chest out, when he started moving forward, you couldn't stop him. And, you know, when it was time for him to throw hands and make his comeback and do business, you believed it.
Yeah. Like he was never – you wouldn't accuse him of being like a workhorse in terms of like technical trading holds. He was a guy that fired up. He was a not a brawler, but I mean a little bit of hands throwing, and he was just a tough guy. Yeah, he was a tough guy.
Yeah,
and
you believe it. He's a good-looking guy.
Yeah,
that he was a good-looking guy that all the chicks loved.
Right,
but he's a good-looking guy. The guys also said, "Man, I'd like to be that guy."
You know, it's funny. One of the first shows I ever saw him live at, they were selling a Magnum TA only program. And I was like, I got to have the Magnum TA program. So I picked up the Magnum TA program, and, you know, there's action shots and you know, pictures of him posing. And all of a sudden, there's one in the back where he's just wearing a towel. And I was like, why do they have this in the thing? I was like, why am I looking at a picture of Magnum TA in a towel? And then I was like,
got the eyes raked, as we would say in the squared circle. So, okay, Magnum TA, and you like the feud with Tully, other guys that you dug there.
Well,
I was a big mark for Flair. Of course, I love the Horsemen as well. Of course, I kind of modeled my early days after Ric Flair, but you keep going.
Sure, yeah. Like watching the Four Horsemen sort of come into play, watching Jim Cornette in the Midnight Express, watching the Rock and Roll Express.
Midnight's awesome.
When the Rock and Roll Express came to Mid-Atlantic territories, and at that time the Russians were the tag champions and looked like they couldn't be defeated. And all of a sudden, on television, out of nowhere, here come the Rock and Roll Express, and they're the new tag champions. It was like, they just beat the Russians. It was like, you know, the Mets win the series or whatever, you know, pick your sports
Let me ask
analogy.
you a question. When I started watching pro wrestling, I was 7 or 8 years old, and I believed it was real. I recently talked to Vince Russo, who was a writer for WWF back in the day during the Attitude Era, and had a great conversation with him, and I enjoyed reconnecting with him. But when he grew up in New York, probably about 12, 13, when he started watching the business, he always knew it was on the take. He always believed it was entertainment. I believed it was real. Where were you? You're 5 years younger than me. But was it real to you, or were you like, okay, it's entertainment, it's on the take?
No, that stuff to me was real.
Exactly.
That was real to me.
Thank you for someone finally coming to goddamn 316 Gimmick Street and believing that pro wrestling was actually real, other than myself.
Here's the thing, too. Like when I started watching and following wrestling, it was right around the advent of cable. So at first, all I was watching was UWF, or not UWF, excuse me. On my UHF, I was watching Mid-Atlantic. Right. And then all of a sudden, now I could get ESPN, which meant I was getting AWA, I was getting World Class, and then I was getting USA, and all of a sudden I got Tuesday Night Titans, and that was completely different than what I was watching in Mid-Atlantic.
Now, what'd you think when you started getting Tuesday Night Titans?
I was like, man, this is a lot of tickle butt. This is nonsense, you know? I mean,
tickle butt. That's the first time the word tickle butt has ever been uttered in this studio, which is actually my house. How would you describe tickle butt?
Tickle butt is nonsense, man. It's tomfoolery and shenanigans, and you know, and that was their. I don't know what their mentality was for having. Mr. Fuji at the Japanese restaurant, or I can't remember specific stuff, but you know, the talk show format, and sometimes you get a match, and then you'd have, you know, Big John Studd in a kimono, or you know, something like that, and I was just like, man, this isn't Ric Flair and Ricky Morton wrestling, or you know, the Road Warriors beating guys up. It's cartoony, and that to me wasn't my flavor at that time. Right. So yeah, I mean, I grew up watching all that stuff and watched a lot of World Class, a lot of UWF when we had it, and then you know, a little bit of AWA. So
and all those different promotions and territories that you were watching, you named a couple of them, but some of the other guys from the other territories that you really enjoyed their work, or you really believed in and bought into.
I dug a lot of the Simpsons out of World Class, the two kids from South Africa.
They're selling mattresses in Dallas still.
Are they really?
Yeah, they're still around, yeah.
I like those guys stood out. Like, I was never the guy that got it behind the guy that was getting shoved down your throat.
Right.
So I was okay with the Von Erichs watching World Class, but I also dug, like, and this is after the Von Erichs were sort of gone, but like when Eric Embry was getting his thing, I was like, oh, Eric Embry's different. How cool is that? And Chris Adams was someone I was like, oh, Chris Adams is cool, and the super kick was such a neat move. And even the stuff when you and he were doing their stuff, I was like, oh man, this is really neat stuff. So like those guys in UWF, like when I first saw Sting and Warrior as the Blade Runners.
Oh, dude, when I first saw the Blade Runners, those dudes were so jacked up. In particular, Ultimate Warrior, who was he was Rock back in.
Rock
and Sting. But Jesus Christ, the dude was put together like a brick shit house. Yeah, they weren't so great in the ring, but they just looked so impressive. I bought into it.
And that stood out to me. And once Magnum had his accident, like my new favorite ended up being Sting, because it wasn't soon after that UWF sort of merged with Crockett, and all of those stars sort of came over and were doing things like Rick Steiner came over and Sting came over and Eddie Gilbert, who had been in UWF, came over, and that was my first view of Sting, and I was like, holy cow, this guy's awesome. And he stood out. I mean, like everybody was, well built and muscular at that time, but like the whole makeup and the short hair and the colorful tights, I was like, man, that guy's great. And so that was my favorite
wrestler of all time.
Michaels. And that's before I was a wrestler, Ricky Steamboat.
Right.
Once I became a wrestler, Shawn Michaels.
Okay, the difference. Why Steamboat before, and then why Michaels after?
Just, I think for the time period, like what I was watching, like I really dug Ricky Steamboat and watching him, not just in NWA, but when he went to WWF. And I think everybody talks about Savage Steamboat at WrestleMania 3 and finally him becoming Intercontinental Champion. And that was something for me too. Like I was always the U.S. champion guy or the Intercontinental champion guy versus the world champion.
Yeah, they were kind of they were the workers.
Yeah. And so like I was a big fan of Nikita Koloff when he was U.S. champion, and Barry Windham when he was U.S. champion, and then the Intercontinental, like when Michaels was Intercontinental champion, when Hennig was Mr. Perfect was the champ, Bret Hart back then, even the short period where Roddy Piper had the belt, I was like, Roddy Piper got the Intercontinental title, whoa, you know what I mean? That was a big deal, and so those were the feuds that I really dug watching.
But so now, after 20 years in business, Shawn Michaels, yeah,
he's definitely the guy that I.
What did you think? I tell you what, back in the day when I was first getting in, I was kind of, 3 or 4 years in, you kind of look at this when Pro Wrestling Illustrated was still around.
Right.
And, you're looking at the top 10. And it was almost like a shoot back in, right?
Right.
You're trying to make a PWI top 10. That's how wrestlers think. So anyway, finally I cracked into the top 10, and there's Shawn Michaels always up there. And if he wasn't number one, he's in the top 2. And then you finally see some footage of the guy, and you think, oh man, he's just a high spot artist.
Right.
And that's what you think because you're trying to catch him.
Yeah.
But the dude was just light years ahead of everybody. And now when I look back and when I got to work with him, but now as we sit here and talk, Ric Flair, when people ask me my favorite wrestler, it's Ric Flair. But as in regards to in-ring performer, night in, night out, the best that there ever was. And I love Bret Hart, but Shawn Michaels is just peerless, and I think he stands at the top for me.
Yeah. And I think the thing that I really dug about him, not just the in-ring performance, I mean, technically speaking, but also the character, the swagger. He was the guy, like you said, the guy that guys wanted to be like and the girls wanted to be with. That to me, I was like, oh, that's awesome. I would like to be that when I grew up. Right. And then once I got into wrestling, I was like, this is the guy I want to emulate. And this is the guy, like, to this day, I still do things that I do because Michaels did them before, Well,
that's interesting because, hey, stay tuned, folks. I'm going to come right back after a pause for the cause, a word from our sponsors, and talk about Christopher Daniels and the Fallen Angel and Curry Man and much more. We'll be right back.
The Steve Austin Show. The Steve Austin Show.
Geico asks, how would you love a chance to save some money on insurance? Of course you would. And when it comes to great rates on insurance, Geico can help. Like with insurance for your car, truck, motorcycle, boat, and RV. Even help with homeowners or renters coverage. Plus, add an easy-to-use mobile app, available 24-hour roadside assistance, and more. And Geico isn't an easy choice. Switch today and see all the ways you could save. It's simple. Go to geico.com or contact your local agent today.
Steve Austin Unleashed.
All right, sitting here with Christopher Daniels, Appreciate these guys keeping this damn show on the air for free. 2 cans of audio whoop-ass every single week coming from 316 Gimmick Street. Hey, man, we're talking about Shawn Michaels right before we went on a break, and you were talking about some of the things that you took from him and used or were inspirational in your development. But you're a comic book guy. You just brought me 2 comic books. I'm going to sign one of them for you. But tell me about the genesis or the creative thought process that you went through in creating the Fallen Angel.
Okay.
What's that all about? Is that a religious thing? Are you a spiritual guy?
No, I am. I grew up Catholic,
right,
and sort of fell away from that as I grew older.
Now, why did you fall away from it?
I think a lot of it had to do. I went to college. I went to a place called Methodist College, and I had to go through one of the requirements as a first-year guy was going to a religion class. And it was one of those things where the guy was like, what's more likely that all of these different gods or all of these different what's the word I'm looking for? These interpretations of God, in over in the Middle East, it's Allah, and here it's Jesus Christ and blah, blah, blah. Is it more likely that they all are right, or is it more likely that they were made up by people? And that's why it's different everywhere you go. And then, once you start asking those questions, it's like, wow, isn't there? And like, I never really had a strong, a strong connection to it. So it was easy for me to go, well, sort of back away. So I'm not really that spiritual at all. My wife is, and
right.
My wife's Christian, and we go to church, and really that's more for what.
So you go to church?
I do go to church.
So what are you thinking while you're sitting in church?
I listen to the sermons and think, this is helping certain people in need, and I don't necessarily. Even if I don't think I need it, sometimes right. I do need it. It's different. And my wife always prays for me, and there's a right. card that says, "What should we pray for?" And she's always like, "Please pray for my husband, to come to the same realizations that I have." And maybe I will at some point, maybe I won't. You hear about so many guys going through life, and at the end they're like, you know what, I should have come to Jesus back in the day. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I don't know if that'll ever happen for me. Because that's. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's interesting, though, because every now and then I flip channels. I go to TBN, Trinity
sure.
Broadcast Network, and I watch a little bit of Joel Osteen.
Yep, my wife watches him as well.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And if anything, I'm probably along the same lines as you. But if anything, they're great. There's great tales of morality.
Sure.
And the Bible speaks to these things. I'm kind of at the end of the day, doing to others as you would have others doing to you.
Sure.
Treat people like you want to be treated.
Of course.
That's end of story. But so now. Tell me about the Fallen Angel.
Okay, well, first of all, I started my career as Christopher Daniels. I've been Christopher Daniels ever since my first right. match. But about a year and a half in, I was a
Now, how did you come up with Christopher Daniels?
My middle name is Christopher. My first name is Daniel. And first, actually, even before that, when I was in school, I was trying to be an actor. That was my goal, was
right.
to get into theater.
So you need
okay. And I was coming up, and the way my real name, it doesn't really roll off the tongue because of like the syllables and stuff like that. So I had come up with some wacky stage name, and I said it to somebody, and they go, Christopher's a nice name and Daniel's a nice name. Why would you change that? And then I thought, oh, well, why don't I just be Christopher Daniels? So I was Christopher Daniels from the beginning. About a year and a half in, I was a babyface.
Okay, check it out. Year and a half in. So all you're thinking is mechanics.
Right.
You hadn't created a character, persona. Nope. It's all mechanics.
Just
correct?
white meat babyface.
Right.
I'm a year and a half.
Trying to learn.
Yeah,
and trying to learn.
Right. So about a year and a half in, I got an opportunity to turn heel and to start a tag team with a friend of mine named Kevin Quinn. We were in Windy City Pro Wrestling. This is 1994. And we're coming up with a tag team name. And I said, there's a comic book from Marvel Comics called Fallen Angels. And I said to my partner, how about the Fallen Angels? Because we once were good and now we're bad. And he never got on board with that. But I said, well, damn, I love the Fallen Angels, so I'm going to keep that as my name. So he ended up being Wild Child Kevin Quinn. I was Fallen Angel Christopher Daniels, and we went with the tag team name Overkill. So that was like, we went to WWC down in Puerto Rico as them and did a little bit more when we came back. So that was how the name came about. About a couple years later, all of a sudden, Dustin Rhodes is doing Gold Dust. And I thought to myself, that's brilliant, because no matter where you were from, how old you were, rich or poor, what race you were, if you were a dude, that creeped you out because you had a strong sense of sexuality and he was pushing buttons. And I thought to myself, what's another topic that would push buttons across the board? Religion. Right. So I got in my head, there was a movie called Malice that Alec Baldwin played a doctor, and there's a speech in there where he's like, when your wife is on the table and I'm cutting into her and you drop to a knee and you start praying to God, who do you think you're praying to? You're praying to me. And I thought, that's brilliant. So I wanted to be a guy who thought he was God. And then going from the impossibility of that, being a guy who thought he was God's chosen guy. And I was going off of Kevin Spacey's character in the movie Seven and David Koresh from Waco, Texas, like that kind of leader of men, because I knew I wasn't going to be the Ultimate Warrior. Right. I was, 5'11" at that point. So I was never going to get tall. I was never going to be jacked, but I could be intimidated vocally. Right. I could be a leader of men, and I wanted to be that sort of cult leader and that religious, like the idea that God chose me and not you. God obviously didn't like you because you're not me. He loves me, that sort of thing. And so from there, I was like, well, what if I dressed in a priest robe? And so I would come out with the priest robe, and I actually tried to buy a priest robe, and my wife said, "What are you doing buying a priest robe? I can talk to a church, and you can borrow it." So I go to this church that she called, and the priest goes, "Oh, hi, your wife said you were going to borrow this for a play," and I go, "Yes, sir, I did," and that was 20 some odd years ago, and I still have the priest robe. "Oh, I'll return it when I'm done, sir," and so I may catch hell in the end for that one, but.
So you're the fallen angel,
right?
Now, how long did it really take you to be able to incorporate who you were into your act?
It's hard to say because I don't know if I ever really did because, first of all, I always tried to be controversial without being offensive, but religion's a line.
It's a fine line to walk, especially when you're talking religion.
And it's almost one dimensional. It's almost like the side of a piece of paper.
Yes.
And so, I wanted to say things like, my big thing, especially later on when I was doing it in TNA, I almost wanted to be like, the bad things that happen in the world, they happen because of you. It's your fault. And like part of the thing, like I had thought of a speech like, what if I'd come out on television and said, hey, 9/11 happened because of you people. Katrina happened because of you people. And I'm happening now. I'm beating your favorite wrestlers because of you, because of them. They're the ones that are wrong, and I'm God's vengeance. And that was the way I wanted to go, but that was a little bit, whoa, brother. Everybody was like, I don't know if you should say that. And I understood, sponsors don't want to be talking about God on wrestling. And so I never really got that entire character. Like the closest I ever came was in TNA with Sting for that short period of time. But even then, like I was talking to him about it. And, he's a,
deeply spiritual guy.
Oh, yeah. And like when I told him about the whole thing about like 9/11 and Katrina and how I was the penance that you had to serve. And he had never even really heard the term penance. He was like, what is that? And I was like, oh, it's the punishment for your sins. You say you're sorry, and this is what you have to do to pay back, or not pay back, but recompense for your sins. I was that. And he was like, oh, you could tell he was sort of like, ooh, brother.
Right.
So yeah, that never really got off the ground. And near the end, they kept coming to me and going, well, why are you the fallen angel? Why are you the fallen angel? And I thought, well, if I can't go full bore with this, it's almost like I'm wearing another man's clothes. Right. You know what I mean? Like it never really fit me. I wanted to be that preacher, that like fire and brimstone guy. But like the more I got to it and the less I could actually go all the way, I thought it's coming off forced. And now I got to I had to pull back. But
it's almost like dragging an anchor.
Yeah.
I mean, because you want to go with it, but
not everybody's on board. You turn around and no one's got your back, and I'm like, oh. So there was a couple times where it was good visually, and there was good sound bites, like my catchphrase was that, and that's the gospel according to the fallen angel, and those were all good, and like even like when I met Dory Funk and he saw that gimmick for the first time, he was like, that's awesome. Just look at it and people are upset at you. But past that, there was nothing there because I could never really flesh it out and turning into a three-dimensional character. So,
but you originally wanted to be an actor, right?
Yeah, my degree was in theater, and I actually lived in Chicago for a couple of years trying to get into the theater scene, and that's where I got into pro wrestling. The story was, I was up in Chicago. My wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, We were both actors, and we met each other down in North Carolina doing summer stock theater. We moved back to where her family was, which was like the Chicago outskirts, trying to get into the theater scene. So trying to make money doing theater at that point was completely difficult.
Right.
Like, there was a little bit, like I was doing children's theater for schools, but like they wanted you there like 6 days a week from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. for no money. And so, and I had a job because I was living, with her. I wasn't living with my parents. And, so I'm struggling with that. And then one day, or not one day, but I mean, like over the course of our lives together, I always said, hey, you know what? If this acting thing doesn't work out, I'll go be a pro wrestler or something. Well, she got a bug up her ass, and she found a school, Windy City Pro Wrestling, 30 minutes from where we lived, and she made an appointment for me. And she says, you're going to go meet this guy. It's like, okay. So I go in. I talked to Sam DeCero, the guy that ran it. And she says I came out after the meeting like glazed eyes, like starstruck. And so I decided, you know what, I'll give this a shot. And if I wash out and fail, I can always tell my kids, hey, your dad tried pro wrestling. And so.
How was the instruction? How long was the school, and what did it cost you?
The deal was you could either pay in increments, and if you paid in increments, it would cost you $2,500 altogether. Or if you paid all up front, you paid $2,000. So I talked to my mom, and I said, and my thought too was, they wouldn't start letting me wrestle until I finished paying. Right. And I didn't want to pay increments and keep doing, just training. If I could get done quickly, maybe I could wrestle and pay my mom back. Mom, would you co-sign a loan for me? So we co-signed a loan, paid $2,000 up front. I started training in January of '93. And I was there because it was so close to my house. I was going 4 days a week. Tuesday night, Thursday night, Saturday morning, Sunday morning.
How long were you there during the day?
Anywhere from like 2 to 4 hours.
Did you catch on quick?
Well, yeah, I think because I grew up watching it,
right.
I had a frame of reference for how to do stuff.
Right.
Like they said, okay, when you do a body slam, do it like this. Well, I know what a body slam looks like. Do this. Running the ropes came quick to me. Just flat back bumps and the flip bumps and all that stuff. That all came rather quick to me. And so it was 3 months in where we started doing, or they were always doing TV tapings, but like 3 months in, around April '93, they're like, all right, well, you're ready to wrestle. You're ready to wrestle matches. And so I did 2 matches on a TV taping and 2 quick.
Now, did they smarten you up right off the bat?
Not really. I mean, they did. But they like. I remember there was a night where I could have gotten in the ring at a live event, and I think I talked them out of it because I went, now wait a minute. If we're in the ring, how loud are we supposed to be talking to each other? And I think the guy was like, oh, he's not quite ready, brother. So yeah, but they told me, I knew, I was learning how to fall, and I knew as we were working with each other, I knew that it wasn't like I wasn't fighting for holds and they weren't fighting me. It was a dance. And so I knew that part of it and figured that part of it out. So,
but was it a good school? And then were you like, I guess me? You learn how to take a fall. You learn a little bit of chain wrestling. That's really about it. It's really on the job training. It's repetition. It's getting on the road.
A little bit though, and I remember we talked about this on one of the phone calls. You had said, "How did you learn how to put a match together?" Well, they actually had a printout of how to put a match together, and usually the very essence of it is shine, heat, come back.
I mean, they're very simplified.
But this was a little bit. The thing that he gave me had a couple more steps to it, and they're steps that I think are very important. This was 7 steps, and basically it was introduction, which was, the idea that the odds are very good that there's always going to be one person in the audience that has no idea who either one of you are. So establish who your babyface is, establish who your heel is in your opener. Then your shine. Then, the babyface is out wrestling the heel, so the heel does the cutoff and starts the heat. And then 1, 2, 3, 4.
But the babyface has got to out-wrestle the heel.
Right.
The heel can't out-wrestle the babyface.
Exactly.
Or at least he's got to outsmart him. Because
Right.
you might have a heel with a wrestling background. So that's where the babyface is smarter. Please continue.
Right. So then, once you get into the heat, and then this is something that, like, not everybody told me, but or that I don't hear everybody else talking about. But when I talk about it, the hope spot is an actual piece of that 7-part step. And the difference between what happens before the hope spot and what happens after the hope spot is the sense of urgency. I always tell heels, when you take heat at the beginning, first you're sort of methodical and you're taking advantage and you're sort of playing with them. And then all of a sudden there's a hope spot and now you're pissed. And it's like, I almost lost this match. I'll show you. And then you turn it up a notch, and that's where your gears shift. And not everybody really thinks about that when they do hope spots. It's all heat, hope spot, same style heat, instead of, methodical wear down, beat 'em up, and now, okay, I got to finish this.
And get nastier. I always
get
believe
nastier,
to be an effective heel or for a babyface, I believe you must have fire. And as a heel, you must have a mean streak.
Sure.
And want to impose your will. And cheat like a motherfucker.
Yeah.
And kind of nobody cheats anymore.
Yeah.
I didn't see a whole lot of cheating on a Ring of Honor pay-per-view.
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with them trying to do pleasing stuff versus actually being the heel. And that's something too.
Now that's another fine line there, because when you're talking about pleasing stuff, you're just talking about pleasing the crowd for the sake of action.
Sometimes, yeah, it's difficult.
You got to draw a line there,
right?
Because you got to make them want that baby face to make the comeback,
right. And like for me, that's something that I always fought as when I would be heel, because I feel like after a certain period of time, people respected the fact that I had been doing it for a very long time, and B, a lot of my stuff was, not to, give myself the overhand tug, but
no, go ahead and give yourself an overhand tug. It's you, it's not me.
Exactly.
And we're here, and you're the guest on the show.
We're too far away for it.
We're shining you up right now. I'm not going to get any heat. This is all about Christopher Daniels.
So, I felt like when all of my maneuvers were pretty crisp and good looking, and it was very rare that I was all sloppy and flumbly. So like people appreciated that. And so like I would be a heel, but people would cheer the things that I did. And so I was like, well, I got to be a dick either before, after, or during while I'm doing this stuff. So they're mad at me, even though I'm doing the stuff that's in my wheelhouse, playing to my strengths, I still got to be the guy that they want to see get beat up at the end of all this. So it was, being cocky and being, pie facing the guy, or if you're going to do something that's, technically good looking, you got to follow it up with some sort of mean streak like you're talking about. So, and I think a lot of guys today, they're doing their stuff, which is in their wheelhouse, but at the same time, it's so nice that people look past, I don't like this guy. It's like, I respect that, especially in this day and age where everybody knows the gig, or at least
speaking of knowing a gig, okay. There's a guy named Colt Cabana who has a podcast called The Art of Wrestling.
Yes, he
I want
does.
to give him his props, and if you haven't checked out his show, please do. It's a good show. He's been around the world a few times and is a well-spoken cat who knows the trade. With that being said, my question to you, with reference to that phrase, is the art of wrestling being lost?
Not necessarily. I think it's evolving. I think the art of wrestling now.
Okay, is the art of being a wrestling fan lost?
Maybe, because like I sort of compare it to magic, because everybody knows magic when they see it, but they don't want to be reminded when they're watching magic. So the trick is, as a wrestler, I think the art is blurring the lines enough where you get that person as they're sitting in the seat to continue to suspend their disbelief and go, wait a minute, I know this is what it is, but was that real? Are they mad? That sort of thing. Right. And that's the art. And I think,
it's like when you watch a damn movie. You know the movies are put on. Okay,
right.
Okay, there you go. Okay, here we are in a 20 by 20 or whatever size ring you guys are working in. Yeah, it's a work, okay? Yeah. But you want them to believe and buy in. But the work has to be, good enough.
Right.
And there's too much pantomiming and going to the crowd too much. Not really on the Ring of Honor level, but in general, sure. I think people desperate to get a crowd reaction.
Yep.
And so sometimes you really have to put in more work and focus on the in-ring task at hand than to go to the people to draw them in.
Sure. And to, like, I feel especially in this day and age where people are sort of equating the differences of professional wrestling to mixed martial arts, where you still have to treat this as a contest. So like for me, I'm always thinking, okay, well, I'm trying to win this match. It's not just to, yay me, right. But I'm trying to win the match. So a lot of times I'm focusing on not necessarily, appealing to the crowd, but maybe trying to win the match. And if it doesn't work out, then I react, and not react to them, but react like I want them to see, okay, I'm frustrated. Okay, this is going badly, poorly. It's going well. I'm in control, that sort of thing. And then they'll react to that.
Are you a fan of MMA?
Not real. I mean, I don't follow it. I'll watch it, but I'm not a student of the game. Like I know guys like Shane Helms. They can, and you yourself, you can comment intelligently on this guy's skills, what his weaknesses are, what his strengths are. I just watch it. I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. That guy's a good fighter. Blah blah blah.
I guess my point is because I am such a fan, and of course I love pro wrestling. My first love of all things. But my point is, I think it's almost like UFC's, or in particular. UFC,
right.
Not MMA, UFC, is doing pro wrestling better than pro wrestling's doing pro wrestling.
Well, yeah, I think, because they're keeping it simple. I feel like sometimes
Hallelujah! You ain't got to make it complex with a bunch of hullabaloo, hogwash, and horse shit. Pure, simple storylines. There's a gold belt. It means something. A personal issue. And it's not some of this juvenile, sophomoric bullshit.
Right.
It's real stuff that means something, and it strikes a guy's nerve.
Right.
Okay?
The wheel
like
is
your
round.
motherfuckers, you call out the damn guy's wife just for 101 basics.
Right.
There's the personal issue. It doesn't. It ain't rocket science.
Right.
It's pro wrestling. Just give people a reason to buy in and reason to care and think, oh, you motherfucker! I can't believe you said that. I can't believe you did that. I can't believe you would stoop to that level to get that belt. Well, that belt means that much to that heel that he will do whatever it takes to get to some bitch.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do with the evolution of what is important in terms of the presentation of pro wrestling. It used to be that the television was a commercial for the live event, and then all of a sudden here comes pay-per-view. So now both are a commercial for the pay-per-view, and then all of a sudden the Monday Night Wars come around, and now everything's geared to the television. Yeah. Live events are sort of a secondary thing. Pay-per-views are so-so.
But with that being said, during the
TV's
Attitude
big
Era,
thing.
I mean, everybody was selling out everywhere just because the business was hot and generated and just went all over the United States. Wherever we went, it was sold out because the demand for the product was that hot and the awareness was that high.
Yeah. But I mean, at this day and age, and I think especially, I feel like because it's so many years down the road, now they're like, well, we have to make it different. We have to complicate it. Why else are these guys wrestling? Rather than just, I don't like you, you don't like me, let's meet next month at the pay-per-view. It has to be complicated and, shades of gray, which, may be great for, serial dramas, but for pro wrestling, if you're the bad guy and I'm the good guy, they want to see me beat you up.
Right.
That it should be that simple. And sometimes it's over. You're making calculus out of what should be 2 + 2 sometimes.
So what's your thoughts on money drawn promos? I don't think you need a guy to go out there and talk for a 15-minute segment, or the two guys go out there and talk back and forth. I just think sometimes things are, as they're throwing too many elements and a lot of comedic elements. But just say we had two guys that have a legitimate beef. There's just sometimes there's too much talking.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do with them trying to make each issue different between each feud. Like if you and I don't like each other, that's one thing. But if you and I don't like each other, and then Colt Cabana and Frankie Kazarian don't like each other, and then CM Punk and Kyle O'Reilly don't like each other, what makes your match and my match different, or what makes our issue different? Obviously, our match is going to be different because you're you and I'm me, and those guys are those guys. But if it's just, all right, well, this guy doesn't like this guy, they're going to fight. This guy doesn't like this guy, they're going to fight. And to them, they might think, well, God, there's a lot of similarity. Let's spice it up a bit. So, you and I don't like each other because you're the champ. They don't like each other because, he kept him from being number one contender or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden, well, now we got to explain that. Well, where do you do that? In the 10-minute promo that we're going to do at the beginning of the show. So,
what was your favorite feud of all time or favorite angle of all time? Just whether it's Mid-Atlantic or just, can you specifically remember some of your favorite stuff and it pertains to an angle or a feud?
Well, for me, there's two different answers in the sense that the answer of when I was a fan and didn't know any better, and then the answer when I was in the business and really dug it. I think for me as a fan, the Magnum TA Nikita Koloff Best of 7 that accidentally became Nikita coming to TA's side or joining up with Dusty.
God, that was a great.
After the fact, yeah, and so surprised. I mean, like I had no idea what was going on. I can't remember when it happened, but 15, 14 years old, and all of a sudden, Magnum TA's done. He's never going to wrestle again. Nikita Koloff is wrestling with Dusty Rhodes. My mind exploded. Yeah. What? So, so like that to me, like that whole series, and I I sort of knew that Nikita Koloff was going to be the U.S. champion. I was like, God, I want TA to win. I want him to win. And, he was down 3-0, and then he got 3-1, 3-2. It's tied up. Come on, TA. Oh.
Yeah.
So I was like, God damn. And then Nikita turned babyface. And as much as I hated Nikita when he was the heel, the minute he turned babyface, I was like, yeah, Nikita. Yeah. So, God, as far as like after being a fan or after being in the business and having that critical eye.
Hey, before he gets to that critical eye, y'all hear that sound in the background? Someone is ringing my front gate out there. So that's the telephone letting me know that someone's at the front gate. I cannot go to the front gate because I'm sitting there talking with Christopher Daniels, the fallen angel. Anyway, you were saying.
I'm trying to think.
Anyway, when the sound goes off like that, Christopher, I think you're familiar with movie sets and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
When anybody's phone or something like that happens while a recording or a filming is going on, the person responsible owes everybody around a beer. So for the second episode in a row, I owe everybody out there that listens to the Steve Austin
whoever
show
rang the
beer.
bell owes us a beer. We should find out who owes us a beer.
Yeah. Well, no, I owe someone a beer because it was my phone that went off. Continue now that you've been around.
Okay, now that I've been around, I'd have to say Shawn Michaels' road to finally getting the world title for the very first time. That culminated with him in the Iron Man match.
Yeah,
with Bret. Yeah. So, and I was such a huge fan of his. And at that point, like, man, I want to be like him. And like the year before when he wrestled Kevin Nash for the title, and I was thinking, he can do it. He can do it. He can be the guy because he knows Kevin Nash's weaknesses or whatnot. And then he didn't go over. And I was like, oh man, that stinks. And then, it ended up adding to the story when a year later, he's a good guy. He's wrestling Bret Hart, who at that time was considered the best in the world. And
right.
Here we are an hour and change later, and he's the world champ.
I got a chance to work with both guys, and I put them right there, just neck and neck. I mean, and Bret's one of my favorite guys to ever get in the ring with.
Right.
On a night-in, night-out basis. I just love the guy. Love what he did in the ring. So as big of a Shawn Michaels fan as you were, what was your thoughts on Bret the Hitman Hart?
I was a fan, but I think skill-wise they were pretty equal. But to me, it was the pizzazz of Shawn that made me the fan versus I dug Bret, but Bret was very I don't want to say dull because that's
Bret was working man.
Bret was Bret.
Yeah,
Bret
it was bread and butter straight up. Meat and potatoes,
sure,
and that's what I dug about him. But and then when Vince kind of said, "Hey, I'm going to go with Shawn," Shawn kind of brought the Supercross in. He had just that little bit extra dazzle with the high flying stuff, where Bret was a little bit more ground game. But both, I mean, really, really peerless in the ring.
Now, the one thing though, having said that, I really got more into Bret when he turned heel and was doing stuff with you and had
the
Hart Foundation.
Yeah,
a little bit. But I mean, that also, you knew there was a bit of truth to what he was saying, and so there was a little spark there that he didn't have when he was working man's meat and potatoes.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden there's some spice to it, and I was like, all right, I'm with this now, and a little bit of heel. And that was one of the things too, and that's something that I indirectly got from comic books. But the idea of a heel who thinks he's right.
Right.
To me, has way more legs than a guy that's just,
right.
sniping whiplash. You know what I mean?
Well, that's his motivating factor. That's coming from the core, and it's real.
Yeah.
And I think I was just talking to Bret 2 days ago. We talked on the phone about 30 minutes, and we didn't talk about this, but I think when Bret finally turned heel, it wasn't his idea to turn heel, but when he did, I think it was a release for him, and to just finally, he'd been, he's a Canadian hero for a shoot.
Sure.
And beloved by people all over the world. But now was finally time, just because of positioning and the way things happened, for him to finally vent. And as much as you want to be loved, sometimes, God dang, I hate to piss and moan on the podcast because, what I really got to complain about, there's a lot of people worse off, but everybody has their shitty days.
Sure.
And then finally, with what was going on in his career and to play the part, he could damn near he could vent, and it could be damn near a shoot.
Right.
And that's real.
Yeah, and I feel like, because he was one of, not white meat babyface, but I mean that style of I've got my principles and I won't back down. Yeah. That turned some people off, and that made him matter. Made him matter. Like, what's wrong with you people? I'm right, and they're like, meh, and that added to his spark, that indignance, God, I'm right. What's wrong with you people?
Hey, I'm sitting here talking to Christopher Daniels, and we're going to wrap this one up. But before we leave, let's plug a little bit. Your Twitter account is FAC Daniels.
That's it.
FAC Daniels on Twitter. Your website is?
FallenAngelChristopherDaniels.com, the longest URL in pro wrestling history. Sorry, everybody.
Okay, so tell me about the website. What's it about?
It literally is just keeping everybody up to date on my schedule. When I have a very good publicist by the name of Mark Kruskal who gets me oodles and oodles, and I'm probably the first guy to say oodles and oodles in your studio.
You are, but you said it in kind of a way with panache and I say quoi that I really dug. Yeah, you really jazzing up the show here with a bunch of shit that no one's ever said on the show.
He gives me oodles and oodles of publicity, and so that that all gets sent to my website so you can read about my interviews with different live event stuff that I'm doing, or different comic book stuff that I'm doing, or different acting things that I'm doing. That all goes there, and also merchandise and other nonsense. So
all right, we're going to continue the conversation. It's going to come up next week, man. We're going to talk Japan. We're going to talk Mexico. We're going to talk Curry Man, a little bit of Suicide stuff. Talk about some of the matches you had in TNA. Some of the the X Games, X Division,
Ultimate X, and X Division, right?
X Division and Ultimate X stuff. And along with the illustrious, what'd you guys call those things? Triple threat matches? You, Samoa Joe, AJ Styles. What was that billed as?
Just a triple threat.
Triple threat. That was what y'all call it?
Yeah,
they call it three-way dance in ECW.
Right.
I always hated them in WWF just because, my mind was geared to be a singles wrestler.
Right.
But anyway, let's don't get into that here. Let's get into that on the next episode. Steve Austin signing off for FAC Daniels on Twitter. Fallen Angel. ChristopherDaniels.com.
That's it.
Jesus H. Christ. Evil son of a bitch.
This has been a Podcast One production. Download new episodes of The Steve Austin Show every Tuesday at PodcastOne.com. That's PodcastOne.com.
Hey, this is Adam Carolla. Let me tell you about my podcast. We do it every single day, so you can subscribe, and there'll always be a fresh one waiting for you. It's about 2 hours of topical topics, and news, and guests, and comedians, and, of course, my own vitriolic take on just about everything that's going on in the world. Plus, we get a lot of really interesting, notable people who come in. We'll get politicians, we'll get tastemakers, we'll get stand-ups, we'll get authors, we'll get pundits, we'll get, what I say? Well, I think about covers it all. Celebrities as well. And we'll do some really interesting interviews with them. You can get the Adam Carolla Show wherever you download your podcast.